Hello, everybody. Once again, welcome to another round and edition of the X Button. I am one of your hosts, Paul, and with me is the wonderful and always enigmatic.
Alejandro. Roger, Roger.
I just noticed, Alejandro, the name in Zencaster is Alfredo.
Oh yeah.
That
So,
got me off guard.
oh my god, so you didn't know that, right?
I never saw that. Has that been
So
there the whole time?
yes.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so I am Alfredo. That's my actual first name, but I go by my middle name because why not?
No way. Seriously?
Yeah, yeah, I go by my middle name.
Oh man, you
Everyone
could. Oh my
everyone
gosh.
calls me all the time with my middle name. I have grown always wrecked into my middle name, and every time
Wow.
someone says my first name, I feel like an old man for some reason.
Wow. Well, if I ever make an amazing award-winning restaurant, I will call one of the dishes Alfredo Segovia in honor of you.
Yeah, well, to be fair, pasta Alfredo and chicken Alfredo is literally some of the greatest food on earth.
It
So
is.
I feel honored to have that name under me, and and that name, it literally is kind of basically dates me on where my lineage comes from, because when you do
Yeah,
those DNA
really.
tests,
Uh-huh.
you know that I am a third Spaniard, a third Italian, and a third German.
Dang.
Yeah, my DNA check, when because I'm whiter than the normal Latino.
Yeah.
I'm hairier than the normal Latino, which is like an Italian thing. My name's Alfredo, which is like
Yeah.
associated with Italy, and and white skin, that's more associated with like with German,
I see
from my
that.
mom's side. So yeah, I'm a huge kettle pot of races,
You're a
and
cuddle.
obviously the
Oh,
Latino, and then obviously the 1% Latino because I was born down here. So
right. Man, well, that is amazing. I'll just finally learn something about you after all these months and I guess year of knowing you now.
yeah, we're reaching the year before we've
Really, though.
originally met. So
Jeez. It's
yeah,
been a
just
while.
a little inside baseball for the viewers. But hey, Paul, episode 5.
Yes, it is. Now, the Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah.
What have you, Alejandro, been up to this week? Any
Uh,
playing, seeing, or hearing?
so I'm gonna say, yeah, I've been playing a lot of again still with my old games, especially good thing I got that Kingdom Hearts 3 DLC out of my system
Hmm.
after we did that the bowel movement that was last week's episode. uh, but yeah, I've been still playing the Prince of Persia games because I'm still like with the year still being relatively slow. I've just been in that nostalgia kick.
Hmm.
So I went in and literally played the entire Prince of Persia trilogy on PS3 with the HD collection,
Sick.
and I got the platinum trophy on both the first game and the second game, and I'm
Hmm.
literally just one trophy away from getting the platinum on the third game. So that's literally all that I have been playing recently. You have to play those games 3 times, especially the second and third game. To get the platinum, you have to play them 3 times in all three difficulties. So
What?
let's just say, yeah, I don't understand
I've
how
that used to be a thing though. I do remember that. It was a
the
pain.
having to, yeah, because the trophy is not stacking.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's like it can be annoying, but then it's like I really like that game, especially like I'll just savor this wonderfully designed linear experience before we start diving into the open world madness once again. Because
Hmm.
remember, this generation is all about that. They
Yeah.
forget the value of the linearity or how valuable it is to have a linear game to offset uh, open world games. And
Hmm.
yeah, so what have you been playing, Paul? Because I haven't really seen or watched anything of note.
All right. For me, I actually, as random as it is, I started back up on NBA 2K19.
Hmm.
Opened up the game because I went on a bit of a NBA craze, starting with 2K16 and just kind of working my way through it. I love making my own character so much that I made it for the my career mode, and I
Hmm.
loved playing through the story, getting to play my own character and boost him up. But I always felt like it was a pain to be leveling that dude up because I was garbage playing against all of these pro players quote unquote, with the AI and whatnot, their stats were so much better than me. So randomly, I was like, hey, I've kind of worked my way up a little bit with 2K19. That's like my overall was maybe 68 or something out of 99. So it wasn't good at all because you start at 64 or 60.
Mhm.
But then when I started up, they gave me a deal to buy 2K20 for
Mhm.
like $30,
Mhm.
and it's normally 60 plus like 65, 66 now with all the taxes and everything. And they were going to give me like a bunch of free stuff on top of it. So it was really funny how like I could clearly see they were bribing me to
Mhm.
just buy this next game. And they're like, we'll give you all this free stuff, you just buy the game. And I finally caved and I went, you know what, I feel like I could do that. And so I bought the game, made my character, did a much better job, I might say. I'm really happy with my designing and sculpting abilities now with all the years that I've spent making my own character. And I used all the little VC virtual currency that they gave me to
Ugh.
give me a massive boost in my abilities. And I've been really enjoying it, honestly.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah, so real quick, I had
mhm.
never knew that you were a big NBA 2K player. Is this because of the Kobe Bryant thing from last
Oh
week?
no, it was completely random. I used to play 2K games. I don't know, like randomly, I was like, you know what? I want to play some kind of sports game, but like a game where I can really shine as an individual, not just as a team. Because I love football, but I can never feel like I'm really doing much with Madden unless you're
Hmm.
like the quarterback. Um, and with this, I was like, you know what? I kind of enjoy basketball. Let me try this out. Found out you could even make your own dude, and I like fell in love with the whole mechanics of it. I watched some videos, had some friends that played it, and I just kind of like kept the ball rolling. I dropped off here and there. Like I don't think I bought 2K17 or 18, but I bought 19 and now 20 as well. And I've just been enjoying it here and there. And then I'll sit down in front of a live game for sure, and I
Hmm.
love it. My fiance is much more of a baseball person than I am,
Nice.
and I'm much more of a basketball person than she is. So it's kind of like a mutual riffing here and there whenever one of
Yeah.
us gets excited about the sport, and you're like, oh, you're watching that trash.
Yeah. Baseball, just like basketball for me, are the sports that I like. I sort of mentioned last week
Hmm.
with our Kobe Bryant thing that
Yeah.
I tend to watch in the finals because that's when I feel there are stakes for me
Oh yeah.
in those games.
There's
So
so
it's
many
so fun.
games otherwise.
Exactly. And why I ended up appreciating American football. I
Hmm.
know for all our American listeners, that's just football.
Yeah.
For me, football is soccer, being a Latino.
Right.
So we always got so American football. I've learned to grow in appreciation the brevity of the season, basically because of like the 16 games and then the playoffs,
Hmm.
and like it always it feels like every game sort of matters. It
Oh
feels like
yes.
a real event compared to the other sports, even though I would say that the excitement of soccer in its best moments has never been rivaled by any other sport. Like for real, like there's
Oh yeah. I've
when you
seen the
really.
announcers for that in the I've watched the World Cup, and one
Mhm.
of my old roommates was huge on soccer. He had all the channels for that, always watching games, and he got me into it for a bit because it's just so intense when you finally get one of those teams to score. It's such a huge deal. And I can kind of understand it much more.
Yeah, it's the one sport where a score does matter because you
Hmm.
get so used with constant scoring in the other sports that then there's a lot of people that are like, man, this is boring. You're just seeing the ball being passed from left and right, and there's like no scoring. That's why where does excitement come? And it's like exactly the excitement comes from actually scoring. Is actually a big deal, and to me the best sport is always when everything feels valuable. Like to me the like a game of football or a game of basketball only really matters in those final seconds,
Hmm.
and to see if someone scores at the last time because I tend to check out if it's constantly scoring and scoring and scoring and scoring. But again, this is just my opinion. I know that I don't. Not many will share the same opinion as me, but yeah, soccer guy all the way. Even though I'm not a big FIFA fan, I don't like those games, and I feel it's like I don't like them because for so much of my life is what I always saw my brother play.
Hmm.
My brother compared to me, that I like dabbling in so many games, and I'm very OCD. I'm like, I'm not sticking with one game and just jumping around. Even though Destiny kind of broke me that way, because that's the one game that for some reason I always kept going back to when I like going through so much and experience so much variety. My brother is that kind of gamer that he finds his three games and he rotates over and over and over again. So FIFA was one of them. Call of Duty was another one. And then since 2013, NBA 2K became another one of those that he suddenly
Mm,
became so obsessed by playing 2K. Literally every freaking game, all the time, watching him play that. And so he rotates between that, Fortnite, and yeah, I think those two. Yeah, those are like his two games. And so
hmm,
he's kind of down to two games at a time.
dang.
And to me, 2K, I feel it's always the most respected of the sports series because the gameplay for the people that really click for it is so good.
Hmm.
And I feel like to me, like FIFA for me fails at gameplay. Like I've never played a game where every time that I press a button, it never does what I want it to do. And that to me breaks it for me. That I want to make a short pass, suddenly make it a long pass. I want to make a long pass. I press the button for the long pass, makes a short pass.
Hmm.
I press the button to try to hit the ball, takes a, sometimes depending on the FIFA game. The newer games get stuck in animations because they want to make things more real, but you're like literally trading visual fidelity for gameplay, um, for exact gameplay, and that's where it really breaks because I hate pressing the button. Okay, I'm gonna hit him. The character getting stuck in an animation loop and not doing what I want, and just me wanting to break a controller. Which, by the
Hmm.
way, back in PS3, I did break a controller over FIFA.
Dang.
Yeah, so it's that's why I hate FIFA, and I hate how much that game takes a hold in countries like mine because it's literally like again a lot of people like to just rotate between two games, and FIFA is always one of them. So
Hmm.
screw FIFA. But NBA, I respect on gameplay. I don't respect it with the virtual currency because
I agree.
that's one of the most gross games in the market when it comes to microtransactions. They
Hmm.
microtransaction the campaign to death. Like
Oh,
everything
it's
is so
terrible.
microtrans. It's like it's literally disgusting, and they get away with it because people keep buying the game. And I think what happens is that many people don't play the career mode. They just play the online mode or just play like locally with
Right.
friends. And when you're just playing like that, it's like you don't really care about that. It's just when you start diving deeper into things like that, where 2K for me starts falling apart, especially when they've gotten grosser and grosser.
Hmm.
That literally NBA 2K20 has like a slot machine, I think, that is literally
I think I
couldn't,
ran past the building for that just
yeah,
today.
and it's just it's straight up gambling, and I'm like, you're not even being subtle about it, but
Hmm.
you just do it because f you, why not? Because there's so many, and kind of what I think I don't even remember what episode I said is like the only way to really hit people and all these companies is in the wallet, not
Hmm.
screaming in the void. So yeah, that's my opinion on NBA. But hey, I'm glad that you're playing something out of the cuff. It's good to see.
Yep.
I'm that's why I love this section always in our show because I never know what we're gonna play. Like literally, the third episode, a coincidence, became a topic of the show. So um, I can't wait to see what we'll be playing, especially in this lulls while we wait for the big games.
Hmm.
Because next week, to me, a big game comes out, Dreams from
Oh,
Media
that's
Model.
next week.
Yeah, that's next week, Friday, on
Oh,
Valentine's Day.
dang.
Yay! I assume. Well, good thing I'm a singleton because you're about to get married. So I assumed your Friday plans were already booked. Well,
If not Friday itself, definitely the weekend.
yeah. So yeah, I am wondering how that game will do. So how much do you know about Dreams?
I know enough that it basically is like a pre-set up building blocks for any sort of video game you can make, almost like Little Big Planet, but even
Yeah,
wider scope.
and it's
And
from the Little Big
has
Planet guys. Is it literally the
oh,
people
okay,
from? Yeah, it's literally the creators of Little Big Planet. They've been
dang,
working on Dreams for 9 years.
yeah, because I remember
9
it hearing
years.
about it and
Yeah,
forgot.
so because Media Molecule's last big game for them was Little Big Planet 2 on PS3 back in January 2011. Then a small team from Media Molecule did the PlayStation Vita game Tearaway, and but the
Mm,
main team has been toiling away with Dreams, which is basically taking the creation tools of Little Big Planet and really blowing it up. And it's really wild seeing some of the creations. Have you seen some of the creations that have popped up from like the early access thing of that thing?
I have just little bits and pieces of it, but it genuinely makes me interested.
And the thing with dreams is that it's almost ironic that that our topic of the show will be what it will be, because I think dreams could be a tool for us to try to create something. Like
Yeah,
just
really.
think about it. So uh, I don't think that game's gonna sell well because it's too niche of a concept of like creating games like that. But I feel it's really neat. Some of the things that you can do in that thing, and I can't wait to play next week, especially because I'm kind of starving for something really new
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
and something creative like that. So, anything you've seen or watched, Paul?
I have done a couple of things actually,
Hmm.
Alejandro. As far as seeing goes, I started feeling the bug to catch up on a little bit of anime personally, and
Hmm.
I started watching Vinland Saga. Now, Alejandro, have you heard about Vinland Saga at
Not
all?
even a peep. I've never heard of that
Okay,
one.
so picture this. It's the guy that made it, of course, is a Japanese man that is obsessed with Celtic culture and Viking
Hmm.
lore.
Okay.
And he created a manga about like the 900s
Hmm.
AD of like the Danish invasion of England and the war that's going on during that time.
Hmm.
And of course, we've recently had a few things over in the West as far as entertainment for that, with The Last Kingdom on Netflix and
Hmm.
Vikings on the History Channel.
Hmm.
But
I've seen
this is
Vikings, which, by the
right.
way, I have seen Vikings. Great show.
Nice. I've seen a little piece of Vikings, and same with Last Kingdom, but this has been a huge, awesome experience because, while of course it's very like animeized with like a couple of exaggerated things, almost like a Dynasty Warriors game. You've got like the main heroes that can do some really amazing stuff. They can jump really far. They can throw an axe and behead like five guys or something. But it has been one of those series that has had a manga for a very long time that a lot of people didn't believe that it was possible to adapt into an animation without butchering it. Similar with the series Berserk, and a lot of people thought JoJo's Bizarre Adventure couldn't be done with that either. Vagabond for the samurai lovers out there. But anyway, this was in that group, and it's currently running still, and it's really an actual saga, and it kind of follows the main guy, Thorfinn, from when he was just like a child up
Hmm.
till he's basically an adult. And I'm no, but by no stretch of the imagination actually caught up at all with it. I'm still working on the first season of the animation itself, but the manga has gone on for a while now.
How long is it? How long has it? How many seasons are there? How many
Well, there's
episodes?
only one season that has been greenlit for a second season. I'm pretty sure it's on, unfortunately, Amazon Prime exclusively, um, which has caused it to kind of be underlooked by or overlooked by a lot of people, and because not as many people have access to Amazon Prime, so they just haven't bothered with it. But my goodness, that show is beautiful. It is really detailed. They actually have not historians, like Scalagrim and what's his name? Oh, it's gonna bug me. But basically, they have different historian YouTubers that will look at like a scene or like the opening fight from the first episode and talk about like the different details of their culture, the how the armor, the clothing, the weapons are all like really meticulously created to be accurate for that time period. And even though there's parts of it that don't make sense at all as far as like the things they can do, the actual like historical events are accurate, and everything about like their culture and things going on are accurate as well. It's just the guy that made it is an extreme like nerd for this kind of time period, and I really appreciate like you can really feel the passion this guy has for this time period and all the Vikings and their culture, and it's just it's really easy to sink into and really enjoy.
Nice. I don't think I would watch that personally because I'm not that big into anime. Just like last last year, getting into what you call it, Evangelion was hard enough. So I don't know. Like to me. anime has to be very specific for me to really get into, and just trying to get through those 26 episodes of Evangelion to me was like a huge ask last year. And
Yeah, that's a tricky one to get through. It's not easy reading or easy eating at all,
no,
digesting
no,
in the
no,
slightest.
especially when you reach those last two episodes and you watch the end of Evangelion movie.
Oh
That
yeah.
when I watch and I see that Netflix rated it TV-14, I'm like, how in the world are
Uh-uh.
you rating? How in the world are you
No,
rating this TV-14?
really
Like
though.
that was like something that really completely messed up with my mind and completely turned me off of anime for a good old while because PJ wanted me to watch Cowboy Bebop and
Ah, that's another one that's not actually the easiest of
yeah,
digesting either.
and I just haven't been in the right mindset. And I tend to go through these things that I have to be in the right mood
Yeah.
for everything for me to like really watch. And if I'm not in the right mood, it's kind of like what's happened to me with The Witcher TV show that I've only seen the
Oh.
first two episodes.
Oh
And
my gosh, still?
yeah, yeah, I still I haven't hit the right mood to like go back with my mom and be like, let's watch the rest of the episodes. Yeah, for
Wow.
some reason, after two episodes, I just haven't felt compelled to go watch more. So I also been on a game kick right now. It happens to me. Sometimes I'll just be on a TV kick and where I don't want to play anything and just watch things. So
Mm.
mood swings. So yeah. So anything else, Paul?
Well, that has been what I've been seeing. As far as hearing goes, I've been using Audible a lot,
Mm-hmm.
and I've been trying to catch up with some series that I used to read a lot of, because I was a major reader back in the day in the high school and college, and I just kind of dropped off like a absolute cliff level of dropping off. Like I couldn't read anything. I'd sit there in front of it. I'd read the same paragraph 5 times. I just couldn't feel it. So
Mm-hmm.
I finally took the plunge and got Audible when it was like on sale for me. And with each month, like they'll give you that free credit. You can use it on anything they have in there.
Mm-hmm.
So it's basically you're just buying a book every month for $15 or something. So I was like, I can like justify that. And it also stacks, so you can go several months without buying anything, and it'll keep like those credits stacking up for you. So you can just use like a bunch of them if you find a bunch of books suddenly that you like. So
Mm-hmm.
I started catching up with the Lightbringer series by Brent Weeks. I don't know if I've talked about it at all on the show, but
Mm-hmm.
that series is bonkers. The guy has done like several series beforehand, and then he made this entire magic system based around light and how like
Mm-hmm.
individual people can sometimes use a different color which does a different thing. It's made out of different stuff, like for instance, the red can be straight up fire. They have sub red, which is like lava. You've got yellow, which is almost like daylight, but it's very difficult to hold into a solid object. You've got green, which is like bouncy and pliable. Blue is like hard. You can make it into a spear. And just like every color has a different aspect about it, and how he just weaves this into this crazy like mystery story in this world on top of it, has me on the edge of my seat with like every chapter, because every chapter you can finish it in like 10 minutes, because he does a chapter for like every 2 pages or something. And
Mm-hmm.
so you're like, because he's jumping around with different characters within these 1 pages or 2 pages or so, and it gets really easy to just kind of like get in this rhythm of like, all right, 1 page this guy, next person, all right, cool. And then every time, every book that he does, he brings all of them into this one huge event or one huge battle, so you can see every aspect and perspective of the battle at the same time through each of their eyes,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes on like the other side of a war and stuff. And man, it hits me every time. And that's what I've been hearing slash reading, I guess.
Nice. So things I don't think I would, but it's always interesting to hear a perspective. So
Hmm.
I can't wait to hear from that one. But Paul, in order to not to get too bogged down with all this ancillary stuff,
I
this has
agree,
been kind of a big week for news, I would say.
to say the
Uh,
least.
yeah, probably the biggest news week since our second episode. So I think we shouldn't waste any more time. So
Agreed.
uh, I need you to press X for
Some news.
Dun, 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 dun. Yeah, we still have to figure that one out.
Yeah, we say that every week, and every week we
Yeah,
end up going dee 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 dee.
yeah.
So, Alejandro, I know you're going to be taking the lead for most of this. Why don't we go through that list and you tell me all these details because most of it, if not all of it, is mostly new to me.
All right, that's a good thing that we tend to come together usually once a week for this thing, and me just kind of like just keeping a eagle watch to see what are big interesting things this week. So
Mm,
interesting enough, this week has been like financial reports for most of these companies. So there is like quarterly earnings for the holidays where they kind of like take stock on how many of these companies sold their games and how much revenue they have made and all that. So to me, that's kind of just boring stuff personally.
hmm
It's just like a bunch of revenue forecasts are up 58% for year on year about spending here, blah, blah. So it's like I'm not a accountant, so who cares? But during the Take Two, which is like the parent company for companies like Rockstar,
hmm
something big, huge news happened dropped out of like the financial reporting where they announced that Dan Hauser, which is the co-founder of Rockstar Games, who co-founded that studio
With his brother.
with his brother Sam Hauser, if I'm not mistaken,
Hmm
because Dan and Sam Hauser, next to another guy named Leslie Benzies, back in the day, yeah, he's leaving in March, like definitively leaving
That's
Rockstar.
such a like abrupt leaving too. Like
Yeah, exactly, like
not just
out of
leaving, but next month.
yeah, next month. He was like, yeah. Apparently, they said that he had been in sabbatical over the last year, which kind of makes sense because of
Oh,
reports that Red Dead Redemption 2 was a huge undertaking for Rockstar, especially when it came to crunch, which has been
oh,
a very, very thorny topic in many websites about like
yeah.
developers overworking to
I'm
like
starting to
release
remember
their
that now.
games. And a huge story came out of like the working cultures of Rockstar, how it's
Hmm
like uh, crunch has never been an obligation, but the culture kind of forced them to, because
Right.
of some of the people at the top, they would be crunching, so everyone that wasn't beneath it felt like the pressure for crunching, and apparently that was very propagated by both the Hauser brothers.
Mm,
So why this is big news is because a lot of these Rockstar games, literally all of them, have had their scripts written by the Hauser brothers. So and specifically more Dan than Sam, if I'm not mistaken. And if there's one thing that has always been common with Rockstar games, whether people like them or not, is that their writing is always so spectacularly sharp,
mm,
and it's so well written and developed. Like Red Dead Redemption 2 to me is like for all my qualms I have for the gameplay of that game, the story of that game is masterful. Even if
mhm,
it's too long, it's like just like the care and detail they put into Arthur Morgan's story and like all the ancillary details of the side quests and the dialogue between the people at your camp and all of that. Their writing is always so authentic and whatever they want to write. And they're really good at satire, as seen with GTA. Like
mhm,
GTA is them being completely off the cup and just making fun of whatever it is they're making fun of the moment. Like GTA 4 was making fun of the American dream, and
mhm,
then GTA 5 was all about making fun of the coastal elites of like California and all of that, and like the Silicon Valley techie thing. It's like they are experts at making fun of that in almost a very crass way that can be offensive to some, but you can't deny that like it's very authentic the way that they write those things. But then you flip the script and do something so as heartfelt as the Reddit stories can be
right.
like at their peak. So and Dan Hauser was such a huge proponent for this. So I am really curious to see how much things change for Rockstar with just Sam Hauser in it. There's only one guy, so it's like I would assume it's not gonna be as huge a shift. But I wonder how much this has to do with like the second part of like this story that I know that Take Two, the parent company, really wants Rockstar to release more games and release them quicker because
Mm,
literally Rockstar between 2008 the main Rockstar studio, because you also have to remember that in Rockstar then in 2008, then it had the original Red Dead in 2010, then LA Noir that they didn't quite develop, but they also published
mhm,
with Team Bondi in Australia, and then on 2012 they did Max Payne 3, which they
Hmm.
took from Remedy, the guys from Control. Uh, but they originally published those games. The main Rockstar North studio, they have only released 3 games from like the mothership in 2008, 2013, and 2018. And to be fair to them, just look at the sales number. They announced that Red Dead Redemption 2 has sold 29 million copies.
Oh my
And
gosh.
that, yeah, that's just Red Dead. You know how much GTA 5 has sold through as of 2020?
Ugh, I don't even know.
Give me a number. Try to just give me an estimate. I
Uh,
just want to,
it was for GTA 5.
yeah, GTA 5.
30 million.
Oh my God, you're so wrong. 120 million copies sold.
Oh my
PS4,
gosh.
PS3, Xbox One, Xbox 360, and PC. 120 million copies.
Oh my gosh.
And and GTA 5 took them 5 years to make. They are incredibly profiting from that game. But apparently Take Two it's not satisfied with just profiting off of one game. They want more. And
Hmm.
I feel like Rockstar, based on all these sales, had gotten the benefit of the doubt to take their time to make their games, because like 5 years to make a game in this day and age, especially with people that are all driven by profit, they're driven by like quick investments and all that. You just look at Activision, how often they release Call of Duty. Like the big news of Call of Duty, like for Activision, for example, their big thing was
Hmm.
that, oh yeah, Modern Warfare is probably our best selling game of this generation. Which props to them. Modern Warfare actually was actually really good. And props for Infinity War. Then the big news, a new Call of Duty game's coming out later this year. I'm like, oh yeah, cool, cool news. It's like the equivalent of water is wet and the sky is blue. Um,
Yeah.
but going back to Rockstar, and so they're like, yeah, we kind of want to increase the output because apparently they can make more. They want to increase their margins by selling full box copies, which like the $60. Well, who knows if games are still going to be $60 going into the next generation, but that's topic for the future. But
Hmm.
they just want more that new thing. They want it quicker, and I do wonder. This is just me putting my imaginary tinfoil hat that I put last week on. I wonder if this was like they came into the Hauser brothers and maybe Dan was like, "No, we like taking our time. Look how much money we have made. We have earned this." And Rockstar is like, "No, we need
Right.
more." And then he's like, "Okay, I've been in sabbatical. I'm not coming back. I'm out." I wonder how much that could be what happened there.
Mm.
But the thing is that retiring, I can't imagine how much money he's retiring with. I just can't imagine, considering how much just GTA 5 has sold. And that's not even considering how much the original PS2 GTA sold, which were sold a lot, same as GTA 4 sold a lot. The
Hmm.
Red Deads, all everything that he had a hand on that really sold. Like, man, he must have. Yeah, he already got his retirement. I think he's just like in his 30s or in his 40s. He's set for life. So it's good for him, but I'm more curious to see what happens to Rockstar after this, especially heading into the new generation now. What happens to GTA 5 and Red Dead Redemption 2? Are they getting up converted port when PS5 and the Xbox Series X releases? Are you just
Oh
gonna
shoot.
put it, because here's also remember these consoles are gonna be backwards compatible or more like
Hmm.
forward compatible. So are they just gonna like put a patch in so that a PS5 and Xbox Series X version just takes advantage of that? Are they gonna resell the games to have like a sub? Makes me really curious what's gonna happen to them, especially those games that still have thriving communities.
Hmm.
So, what's your thoughts, Paul?
Well, I think you may be right about the fact that like putting it all together, like him going on sabbatical after Red Dead Redemption 2. I remember, if not you and I remember hearing about how bad crunch time was for that game, and how a lot of the main heads and founders and vice presidents, presidents,
100
whatever,
hour work
working,
weeks,
yep,
they were
100
saying,
hour work weeks.
which is
And
insane.
I can definitely see how that will take a huge toll on both you, your family, your marriage,
Hmm.
everybody around you. So he probably had to get absolutely clear of all of this, and
Hmm.
then trying to like dip his toe back in, everybody started coming after him, and he's like, you know what, I'm out.
Hmm.
So that's what I think is going to go down, or has gone down rather. And
Hmm.
then I do think the Take Two that owns Rockstar is putting more pressure on them to be like, hey, look at such a good job, do this but faster.
Mm-hmm.
and that's not a good idea. But of course, all they see is the money,
Mm-hmm.
so they're going to keep trucking along, not really caring about what happens, and that definitely makes me a little worried about the brand integrity of Rockstar and
Mm-hmm.
the games they're going to come out with, because they've already proved that they can come out with something incomplete with. Have you seen like every online launch of
Mm-hmm.
GTA 5 online and Red Dead Online? And even a lot of people argue Red Dead Online is still completely broken because of all the
Mm-hmm.
crashes and server
All the
issues and
time, and it's
everything.
so popular, and it's so
Hmm.
freaking popular. That's what makes it so funny. Then no matter how much, like, how busted that thing, like, you can't even party correctly with that game.
Yep.
Like, still to this day, but it's still so stinking popular because it's GTA.
It blows my mind. But I mean, it doesn't really blow my mind because it's really fun to play, I'll be honest. And there's
Mhm,
no other Western game at all like it anywhere close. So I can see how a lot of people just get absorbed into it, whether or not it's got issues.
mhm. Same with
Um,
Red Dead. Like, Red Dead Online was also kind of busted when it came out, especially in its economy and all that, which was upsetting for so
yes.
many people because they were like, "How many years have you run GTA Online and you're still launching this with all these problems that you had at launch of GTA 5?
Hmm.
What's wrong with you?" But again, like the merits those games got with their single player are still like unmatched, and it really makes me curious the quality of their games going forward because I feel something that this past console generation really suffered from was that hypothetically both the PS4 and the Xbox One were relatively easier to develop for compared to like something like the PS3, which was notoriously hard to develop for. But probably what they didn't expect was that yeah, they were easier to develop for in premise, but games became more difficult to develop. Period. Now they're getting because they were getting more ambitious with all these online components and the size and all of that.
Hmm.
That I'm really just looking at just thinking about this past generation. I feel like the further we kept going to get into the end, the less games we started getting because I feel they were just taking more time to do, which I feel is better for developers because they're putting more of their time into that. But I feel it's also a symptom that's gonna get worse. The prettier games get, it's gonna take more of a toll on all these developers because it's like you expect every game to be 4K now. You expect every game to be as big as they are, but I'm like,
Right.
you're not really. Not all of them have to be like that. You don't have to saturate the market.
Hmm.
But and it makes me wonder if developers are trying to tackle that issue and be like, especially publishers, be like, man, our output really is not a like a company like EA went from releasing 20 games a year to like three. Activision literally released only one game last year. One game. And I wonder if they're trying to fix their development pipelines, maybe scale up so they can have a bigger output because I can kind of see where they're coming from. The just only having one release doesn't make them too uh, look too viable in front of investors, but it makes me wonder about the quality of next gen
Hmm.
as we head into this new generation now, especially seeing all this. But yeah, really big question mark on Rockstar, and really curious to see what happens.
Hmm.
In other news, also a departure that also kind of came out of left field, which I was kind of surprised, but it's sort of exciting nonetheless in a
Hmm.
way because the reputation that this guy has, which I'm gonna give you a little bit of a rundown, kind of like just yeah. So, Rod Ferguson, who has been the head of the coalition over at Microsoft, which is basically the studio that was formed to just literally work on Gears of War. It's just literally a Gears of War studio. Rod Ferguson, he was like a creative director next with Cliff Blasinski back in the 360 era of the Gears of War series. And after Gears of War 3,
Hmm.
uh, Epic got bought by the Chinese, and then Epic completely switched gears with the kinds of games that they were making. Literally, Gears of War 3 was their last single player game before they went through this whole multiplayer centric games that they've been at which made both Cliff Lesinski and then Rod Ferguson leave Epic because they're like, we're our wants are to make big blockbuster AAA games, not this multiplayer crap. That was back in like 2011, 2012 slash 2013. So Rod Ferguson, after he left Epic, he went to Irrational Games to actually help finish Bioshock Infinite. which had been in development hell for a while, and it was like he was very instrumental to getting that game shipped out of the door. And apparently, that's the reason why Phil Spencer and like the gaming guys at Microsoft brought him back to head the coalition to take over the Gears of War franchise that they bought from Epic to make it a fully owned Microsoft thing. So Blizzard recently has been going through a lot of crap. I don't know if you've heard a lot of
I have heard
old
a little bit about like the World of
Warcraft
Warcraft
3,
3.
just Warcraft 3
Um,
remastered. That's
okay,
been apparently,
Warcraft 3. Okay.
yeah, the Warcraft 3 remaster that apparently was so is so incomplete and so half-assed that it probably has the merit of being the lowest scored user reviewed game in Metacritic history,
Dang.
with how angry people are at like how much they apparently botched that remaster. And not only that, they're coming off from the whole Blitzchung thing from last October, November, where they banned the guy for the Free Hong Kong thing.
Hmm.
So from a gaming output, like Blizzard has been like really messing up recently because they have really literally haven't released anything of consequence since Overwatch. And again, like Blizzard has been like at odds with their co-parent company, which is Activision, uh, that has uh, that has been demanding that, hey, your output has been incredibly low recently. We have to release more. That's
Hmm.
why they Diablo Immortal, I think is what was called, that the whole the mobile game, the mobile Diablo game that spawned the now famous meme of like, is this an out of season April Fool's joke from
Hmm.
back in 2018?
Hmm.
And last year they released Diablo 4. They in the midst of all this controversy when they unveiled the trailers for Overwatch 2 and Diablo 4, and how they said, yeah, we're rebuilding, but these games are still they're long ways from here. Even though we announced them for PS4 and Xbox One, but they're not coming out soon. So I do wonder, with Roth Ferguson's reputation of being the guy that comes in to help push things out the door, and pretty good. I
Hmm.
wonder if they saw that record, remember what he did for Bioshock, and apparently he did something with the Counter Strike port to Xbox back in the day. He also came in to kind of help finish push that final project through the final phase, just based on like an interview that I was reading back in the day, if I'm not mistaken. Uh,
Interesting.
I do wonder if him going to Blizzard is him to finally try to get everyone into shape to release Diablo 4 as soon as possible, considering the all the problems that they're having with their output. So, what are your thoughts, Paul?
I have not liked Blizzard in a while. I worry about all the stuff that goes on behind those doors. Um, at the same time, I feel like I haven't
Um,
felt a huge connection to Gears of War. And I know you and I briefly mentioned it, the way his tweet was worded, it just felt like he was saying a lot between the lines, where it was just this, hey, I really appreciate all the time and effort that we've done on this. Now it's time to move on. And like that needlessly optimistic and energetic kind of talk that says that this man either didn't want to leave and was forced out, or something went down that he really wasn't okay with,
mhm,
and it forced him to go to Blizzard, which I would consider to be a worse company.
mhm.
But what do I know about the video
Yeah.
game industry?
I feel for me, like him living is, I would think he was more trying to get his creative juices going,
Mm,
because he's literally been working in Gears of War for so long, and working at the Coalition, which, by the way, just fun fact, you know that that studio originally was called Black Tusk Studios, which was originally back in the 2013 Microsoft E3. It was unveiled. Oh, we created a new studio to create a new game.
hmm.
And then when everything went down with the Xbox One and they started losing the mind share and all of that, and they recovered the Gears of War IP in 2014. They literally went to Blackout Studio and gave it to Rod Ferguson and be like, "This is the new IP that they were working on. We're shelving it. This is gonna become a Gears of War studio." And I do wonder how
Huh.
much. I wonder how much that tends to maybe block your mind in a way. Just think about this. Like,
Yeah.
imagine Naughty Dog from Sony. If it was called like Uncharted, or like you think about like an Uncharted terminology, and that's what the name of that studio was.
Right.
Like that's basically boxing you into just one series forever because that's the name of your studio.
Right.
And it makes me wonder if after two Gears of War games, that Gears of War 4, which was relatively well received, if it didn't really sell well, and Gears 5, which was a really cool experimental take on Gears of War, with like some of the things that they tried to do that were, some of it was successful, some of it wasn't. If he started finally feeling like, maybe I don't need to keep working on this because the Gears of War formula, for as much as I want to evolve it, it's kind of just, you know, it is what it is. It's like not much can be done there. So I do wonder if maybe going to Blizzard and potentially saving it by releasing Diablo 4 in a more timely manner. Because don't forget, Diablo 1 came like in 2000, and Diablo 3 came out in 2012, and all that time they were working on that thing. And the reason was that the excuse was that we don't have a headline, we're working in games and getting, and they're going to be ready when they're ready. And then when they released Diablo 3, it's still launched busted with the whole Era 37 thing, and the big design mistakes with the auction house and all that stuff. So that didn't really benefit Diablo 3, all that 12 spending almost 12 years wait in between series. So maybe he's just really the guy that knows to be like, put the producer hat and be like, we're not gonna be lazying up, or not that I'm calling it lazy, but it's like, we're not gonna waste time. We're getting this done. And I
Hmm.
wonder if it's like I said, the symptom of Activision demanding more releases from Blizzard, because they really have not been releasing much, and all
Yeah.
these developers want more games instead of just relying on one game with a long tail that eventually the tail runs out. So
True that. So Alejandro, to move away from the departures, or depart from departures, we have one other, well, one more rather, piece of news that talks about how unready certain things are, and that is that Sony has said that they're not confident yet about showing off the PlayStation 5. Now, my thoughts on this so far, just to say the least, I'm not really surprised at this point, because when they had that big press
mhm,
release, I'm sure you remember, they had the big hype moment of, hey, we're going to reveal something, and they showed the logo. And it was just the P, the S, and the
mhm.
5. And many people started digging and thinking and realizing that, well, if they're going to only reveal the logo and there's nothing else that they want to tell us, like a price or an exact date or what it even looks like, um, maybe they're not as far ahead as we were really hoping they are. And, something that I was thinking about is maybe they are pressured to move faster than they're ready because Microsoft is so much further along.
Yeah, to me it's
Hmm.
both yes and no. So my big thing with the Sony thing is that, so this week they've officially launched the website,
Uh huh.
the PlayStation 5 website, and they said something along the lines of, yeah, we're not quite ready yet, but we're going to be showing you more updates in the near future. And to me, what that tells me is more in the lines of, we don't feel as pressured to show the console as we did before, because we're so far ahead of everyone else,
Really?
like with the PS4, that yeah, they're so, because remember, they announced that they have sold
That
108
is
million
true.
PS4s so far. So because I remember last week I mentioned, whenever we recorded,
Hmm.
that was on January 31st, on 2013, when they did that. They did it 2 weeks after then President Sony Kazurai had said that they were gonna wait for Microsoft to go first before they did anything. So it was a little bit of a head fake. And then suddenly they announced, oh yeah, we're doing the Future of PlayStation meeting, where they officially announced PlayStation 4. But the thing is that they just announced that it was called the PlayStation 4, and they showed the controller and
Hmm.
a few of the games that they were working on, but they didn't even show the console. The console was shown at E3 2013. So what this tell, and that was a Sony that was
Hmm.
behind at the time. They were still like PS3 was historically still behind the Xbox 360 in mindshare and in sales. So that was when the generation was going on Microsoft's favor. So they kind of did that as a way to try
Mm-hmm.
to undercut them. So this time around, I'm feeling that because they know that the PS4 has been such a huge success for them, that they don't feel the pressure of revealing the console as early as they did last time. Because that time they kind of did it just to kind of take
Mm.
over the mind share of Microsoft, especially heading into the next generation. But they also caught Microsoft in very cocky mode. So I personally don't know what they're waiting though, because I feel the announcer showing the box of the Xbox Series X must have been a huge blind signing thing for them. That they never expected
Mm-hmm.
Microsoft to show the box that early as they did it. But at the same time, Microsoft is also playing a different ball game, as seen with the next story that we're gonna talk about in a little bit. But yeah, I feel that personally, in my
Mm-hmm.
opinion, they shouldn't wait this long, especially because we have to add that this is also adding to the fact that they have been really quiet for almost 2 years now, with the exception of like the state of plays and releasing some of the last few games that they had announced before and all of that. When it came to like big announcements, Sony has been obnoxiously quiet since E3 2018, the famous or infamous E3 of the guy playing a
I
flute
forgot about
before
that.
Ghost of Tsushima. So yeah,
Mm.
because it's been too long. Because remember, that was the last time they were at E3. So it's been
Yep.
really strange in that way, because I feel like it's exciting to think about. Man, they're really quiet. I wonder how much they
Mm-hmm.
may have to show because they went quiet really early. Whereas on the PS3, they stayed loud throughout, even before PS4 came out. And that's why the start of the PS4 generation was slower than it should have been, because they had so much in the pipeline for PS3 even later. And I wonder if they're already working on the pipeline to not make PS5 as barren in the early years. But then at the same time, being this quiet just is raising the expectation that I feel they're
Mm.
setting themselves up for disappointment, especially when it does feel with some of the things that they did over just the last few years and how they've been acting and their bravado of skipping E3 and all that. Everyone's like, I feel Sony's going back to the arrogant PS3 days, and that was really bad for them, especially after dominating so well with PS2. So I don't know. It's like it's still strange, this slow trickle. Me more like I'm just desperate to just hear anything at this point. Like just as a side note, like where's the next Nintendo Direct? Also, it's like a lot of these companies are really quiet in this first few months, and I'm like, just please say something. Just everyone say something. So, but yeah, PS5 still not
Yep.
revealed. Well, technically they did. So here's the thing. Here's the thing. PS4 when they originally revealed it was when they talk about the specs that they were gonna use, what it was gonna do for like the UI, and blah 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 blah. All this information has already been given by the two Wired articles from last year, where they revealed that the next generation of
Oh
PlayStation is
yeah.
gonna use a solid state drive for like no loading in April. And then in October, they another Wired article was that, oh yeah, the console will be
Mm-hmm.
called the PlayStation 5. So literally the information that was almost half of the reveal event of the PS4
True.
is already out there. It's just that they're only missing like finalized specs. Which right now the rumor is that Xbox Series X is going to be a little bit more powerful, while PS5 is going to be still relatively powerful, but it's going to be weaker than the Xbox Series X, but with technology that could potentially allow it to release at 399 if they're able to, which I think they should because it works so well for them on PS4. So, but yeah, the silence is so deafening at this point that I just kind of want to feel excited about some announcements now. It's just, yeah, it's I'm getting a little
I
antsy,
believe
Paul.
it.
Way too
And
antsy.
speaking of a lot of confusion that we've been feeling, why don't we just briefly talk about this next little segment that we got? That Microsoft has been choosing this opportunity to fire off at kind of to reach for the skies. I kind of imagine this is like Kratos looking up at Mount Olympus and being like, I will kill all of you.
Uh huh.
So just briefly tell me, Alejandro,
Mm-hmm.
what is this thing and what does it mean before we move on?
Yeah, so strangely, in some weird interview that Microsoft Vice President of Gaming Phil Spencer was saying, he was mentioning how they don't see Sony and Nintendo as direct rivals anymore, but more like they feel like their aims should be their rivalry basically will be aimed squarely at Google and Amazon. And what's so funny was the reaction of just hearing this, because some people kind of read this as like Microsoft literally it's at third place right now in the console space, kind of like what we
Hmm.
mentioned last week with the Nintendo Switch overtaking it in 3.5 years. That they're just literally saying this so they don't directly compete with
Oh,
the rivals that are
that's
trouncing them, while
oh
other
gosh.
yeah, while others are more seeing it as Microsoft being very bullish with the fact that they're looking
Yeah.
way too far ahead of time. Like they're looking way too far ahead into the future, because they are investing on xCloud, which is their streaming service
Mm.
thing, which is basically the equivalent of what Google has been doing with the abortion that is Stadia.
Descriptive word
But
usage.
maybe and all, yes, and the thing is that Amazon has said that they have been investing in gaming, and they want to also invest into gaming with also streaming solutions. So a lot of these companies are they're so adamant that the future of gaming will be kind of similar with Netflix, that everything will be played streaming through the internet. And I do believe that it will be
Hmm.
the future someday. It's just not going to be the future now. But it seems that Microsoft is trying to deflect that by because of the investments they have made with xCloud, and saying that their most direct competitors in that space are definitely going to be Google and Amazon, because they have a server farm that it's completely unrivaled with anyone else. And like Microsoft does have a server cloud, which by the way, you may have forgotten that Sony actually signed up an MOU with Microsoft so that Sony can use the
Hmm.
cloud computing technology that Microsoft had been developing. So I feel like this is just them trying to put the getting ready for a fight in a different turf, compared to like what Sony and Nintendo are doing, which like Sony is still very adamant that they want to be the king in the console space, while Nintendo right now has found huge success with their console hybrid that it's also a handheld, and handheld being historically the thing that Nintendo has always made more money on. Just look at the
Hmm.
sales of the Nintendo DS. It's like just behind PS2 as the biggest best selling thing of all time, and that was a Nintendo thing. So it may be them trying to they may understand it probably in the console market. Sony and Nintendo may be
Hmm.
just too established and dominant, but then they're also looking maybe we're about in just in a few years' time, consoles are not going to be as relevant once we get streaming right, and we're at the forefront of that. And while we're at the far forefront of that, the other two companies that are literally putting their chips on that side of the market on streaming is definitely Google and Amazon. So that's why I wonder that's why
Hmm.
they kind of made this comment. To me, in the context of where we are at in 2020, it's kind of silly to make this kind of this analogy, because the market reality is that the PS4 has sold you almost 3-1, and Nintendo just
Yeah, really.
overtook you. So yeah, it's just both silly and forward thinking. And again, kind of like what I told you last week, Microsoft probably has made some of the more impressive consumer friendly decisions
Hmm.
this generation with Game Pass and all the things that they've been investing and all that, and even doing things like the adaptive controller for the handicapped people, which is incredibly awesome that they
Hmm.
invested into something like that. But they're doing it because they're losing, and I wonder what their tone will be whenever the next generation war truly begins. But basically, them saying this, it's almost setting an expectation. It's like, well, if Sony's not really a comparison, it's like, why do the console wars even exist? Which, by the way, they're silly
Hmm.
anyway. Console wars, like, it's just petty partisan things, like without getting too political, considering some of the things
Yeah.
that happened this week. But yeah, it's just like a petty thing that it's just like at the end it doesn't matter
Hmm.
if they both have great games and they the value proposition is there. It's like why have to have a big dick swinging contest of who has the better console and all that. So yeah, it's strange thing that Microsoft said, but I don't know how what else I have to say about the
I
matter.
think
What
you
about you,
said
Paul?
it pretty well. I would say it's kind of a weird thing. I kind of picture it as Microsoft is playing basketball and they're kind of losing, and they're like, "Well, I wasn't playing against you anyway," and they take their ball and go run off somewhere else to lose again in another area that they don't know how to really operate as well in. Um, so I,
Yeah.
uh-huh.
To be fair, and to interject there, I do feel that Microsoft does have an edge over Amazon and Google in that they have been video game players for a long time. While Google decided to come out of nowhere with no prior gaming experience, they will want to be part of it, same as Amazon. I think the only thing that Google and Amazon have is the
Mhm.
technology and the server farm, but Microsoft has the
Well, I'm not really
know-how
referring
when
to
it comes to
gaming wise.
games.
Like
So,
gaming, absolutely, they'll trounce anything because of how long they've been on it. I'm
mhm,
thinking it's more like they're trying to branch out more than just gaming. And as far as all the services Google offers, all the services Amazon offers, and they're going to think that they're going to break into all that mold that they've been working on. And I can't imagine it's going to be easy for them, especially with them so split
mhm,
between having their own console, running the whole Windows 10 operating system, which I still am not a huge fan of, and everything else that they're now
mhm,
saying they're going to do. But in any case, that is now the past, and the future is this next little segment that I will not spend a lot of time on. But Alejandro, I just wanted to tell you some of these wonderful little things going down.
mhm.
Evo 2020, for anybody listening, that is a fighting game tournament that happens every year. They pick 9 games and go ham on them, and you get some amazing things going down on it. They just released the full lineup.
And
Alejandro, have
the,
you heard anything about
uh
this lineup before I tell you it?
I only know that the Super Smash Bros. Melee
Yes,
community
because
is
Melee
ablaze.
is no longer in it. I don't believe it was in the tournament last year either.
It was.
And they were
It
very
wasn't.
mad
It
about
wasn't.
that. So it's just proof that it's kind of moving on. I mean, when you only have 9 games to choose from, it's very difficult to make a choice. So I'll give you all a
Hmm.
rundown. We've got first Dragon Ball Fighters, game that I was playing a couple of weeks ago. I believe it
Yeah.
definitely has earned its spot there. There's a lot of tech, there's a lot of work you can put into that, and I think it's definitely earned its place. The
Mhm.
next one is Grand Blue Fantasy Versus. This is a game I haven't heard about until yesterday.
Me
Well, I've
neither.
heard of the
Me
series.
neither.
Grand Blue Fantasy is a Japanese RPG series going back for a little bit. I don't think it has any current gen games on it yet, and this is a fighting game using the
Hmm.
characters from the series, almost similar to like the Persona Arena, where it's like the game itself normally isn't at all like a fighter, but they took the characters and made it into a fighter. And it's the same people, Arc
Hmm.
System Works, that did Fighters and Guilty Gear and, yeah, and Blaze Blue and
Blaze
all
Blue
that
and Blaze
stuff.
Blue.
So I've seen a little bit of it. It's like a lot simplified. Of like very simple. There's one button for kind of each thing, and you can mix and match and stuff. And it definitely looks promising. And it's like taking that whole anime place, which means that Dragon Ball Fighters is not in an anime category. It is its own, like it's earned its spot as a fighting game, not just an anime fighting game. Excuse me. Next thing we had was Samurai Showdown. I did not really know much about them. I know it was a classic series.
I've heard about that game. Yeah, I've heard about that game, but I didn't know that it
It
was an actual
is.
fighting
And
series.
they just
Uh,
came out
uh,
with one, I think, last year, if I'm not mistaken. And it has its cult following, and I say power to them. The next is Soul Calibur 6, which has earned its place as well,
yeah,
with
I'll take
Geralt,
it.
my boy, showing up in its own spot. And I will say, Soul Calibur has had some amazing customization options for making your own fighter and kind of getting your own idea out there. And I've seen people make some amazing stuff out of the Soul Calibur customization. If you ever want to laugh, Alejandro, go look that up one day. And next
Yeah,
is Street Fighter V Champion Edition. Not going to say too much about that. Of course, Street Fighter's been running these streets for a long time.
yes, but also Street Fighter Five
I do
was a
remember hearing
controversial
that.
game in the community back in the day. But I feel the championship edition that they released, I don't know
I
if it
think
was
it's
in
about to come
2018 that they
out.
released it,
Um,
kind of changed. No, no, it was like I think
Yeah.
it was arcade edition, the one that completely changed the
Uh huh.
completely changed the perception of that game because that's one of like the more notorious. Oh my god, this
Right.
launched completely empty, and apparently, and Capcom apparently did it because they wanted that
Mm-hmm.
game to be at Evo that year, so they had to release
Oh.
it before for it to qualify, and they patched
Oh
in
my
the story mode
gosh.
that apparently was pretty bad. So yeah, it had a lot of stink back in 2016, but I feel yeah, the fact that it's still there, I feel maybe the opinion has turned
Yeah, I'm
around a little
told the
bit.
Champion
So
Edition has really put in a lot of stuff with it, and even though it's not acceptable to just put out a game that's incomplete, at least they've followed this trend lately of adding things in to kind of give people more. Next, of course, Super
hmm
Smash Bros. Ultimate. Enough said. Don't really need to go into that one too much. It's earned its spot. Spot,
hmm
excuse me.
yeah, just that the melee community, it's like
Yeah, but
forever
I mean
salty
they're
that their game has
forever
been
salty anyway.
eliminated. At at some point, you have to just move the frick on
Hmm.
to the new thing. Like just move the f on. Yeah.
In speaking of
Just move
moving
on.
on, the next was Tekken 7, of course. Enough said about that one.
Yeah,
DLC
that's being a really good
characters
one
are
also back
hit
in
and miss.
2017.
Still don't think Negan needed to be in there, but or Noctis really. And then we've got Alejandro. I'm going to give you the
Mhm.
Scrabble winner in one bit. I'm going to tell you the entire name. It is Under Night in Birth EXE Late CLR.
I don't even know and want to know what
It's
the
an
hell that game
it
is.
is
I
another
really don't know.
anime style 2D fighter. I will say, give like one of the trailers a quick look see. The name is wild, but basically it's a re-release, as I understand it, of another game named Under Night in Birth, and it was very
hmm
like popular in Japan and started getting like a craze back over here on this side of the hemisphere, and it's solid enough that it's earned its spot up here. But Alejandro, the reason why I wanted to bring this up to blow you and everybody else's minds, the ninth game that they chose of all things out of they had as options, just so you know, they had Mortal Kombat 11. They had, of course, like maybe Injustice. They had any of the other
hmm
fighting games that they could have chosen at all. Any Blaze Blue. The one game that they chose for the 20th anniversary is Marvel vs. Capcom 2. And yes.
Yes, and that to me is like NBC 2 is still the best Marvel
Mm,
vs. Capcom game. Period. It's still like that game is fighting in perfection for that kind of competitive fighting community, and I'm so happy that they ignored Infinite and they ignored 3, even though 3 is actually
hmm.
pretty good. Infinite not so much. Um, Even though it has some decent stuff, the visuals are incredibly ugly. Right about it, though. NBC 2, I think that was a solid choice to
Yep.
end like the picks. That's like I remember going to the arcade and playing NBC 2. It's like it's so seminal in my memories of fighting games growing up. So yes, MK community and Smash Bros. Melee community salty for this year, but
Now, I
hey,
will
they're
say,
gonna get over it.
caveat for this is that there is rumor that NetherRealm is making their own fighting game tournament with all of their own games, as
For
I'm
both Mortal
told.
Kombat
I
and
don't know
Injustice.
like exactly what they're doing, but everybody's been kind of squeaking around saying that it's possible that they are make the reason why they're not at Evo is that because they're going to have their own tournament with all of their own games. So I was like,
I
yeah,
guess that
well,
makes sense. I'm wa- I'm wondering where those news. I'm gonna look at those news
I
up
just
because I
heard
had not
about it
heard
maybe
about that.
yesterday.
But yeah,
But with that, that ends our news
okay.
segment. It was a bit bloated, just like I am after dinner, but we got it out of here. And
Yeah.
today's topic, Alejandro,
Yes.
I am very excited for, and we will have that after our little soundbite segment.
It's
The topic for
topic
the
for the
show, that was kind of like the
show.
outro for the news, and now into the topic itself.
Mhm.
Alejandro, I have one question for you. If you could make one game
Yes.
with all the power in the world, what would you make specifically?
All right. So I've been thinking
Hmm.
about this throughout the episode, thinking about what my dream game would be, and it shouldn't come as a surprise that my dream game
Hey,
would
all
be a
right.
Star Wars game.
But you got to tell me
But
what kind of genre are we talking? What are we gonna do here?
I would like it to be an
Ooh.
open world RPG with space exploration that's
Oh
similar to
yeah.
No Man's Sky. That you
You're
can
talking
actually
to me
jump
now.
into your ship and fly to all the different planets with no loading. And the character that you have, it's a mixture of a bounty hunter, but has Jedi powers
Oh, that's
also.
sick.
So that whenever you
Hmm.
are in combat, the combat will look something similar to Control in steroids.
Okay.
So a third person shooting with like you using your force powers of like floating and all that, like in such a crazy way that would make every combat scenario incredibly nuts. And it'll also
Ooh.
be open world and choice based in the way of Fallout, the best Fallout games are. And the game would be set after
Okay.
episode 6 and episode 7. And that to me, just thinking about it, I was like, man, I want that game now. Just because imagine, just when was the last time we actually got an open
um.
world Star Wars
Yeah.
game? It's been like probably never, because
It
KOTOR
wasn't
wasn't as
really an
open
open world.
world
Yeah, it was like a
ish
hub.
because it, exactly. Exactly, and that kind of RPG, yes, has the it has the choice based thing that Bioware was known for and all that, but the combat was like it's turn based in a way that to me doesn't really
Mm,
hold up in 2020. Uh, we haven't had a real exploration game other than No Man's Sky, and No Man's Sky has that thing that it's
yeah.
procedurally generated. Now imagine a space game that is like that seamless, but with like no loading, but it's actually handcrafted. Is handcrafted in a way that doesn't have to rely on an algorithm and all that. And then because I always have in my mind the what could have been if
Oh,
Star
dude,
Wars
I was thinking about that
1313 had
earlier
been.
today.
Yeah,
Hmm.
because that was a third person shooter when you see the
Oh,
combat
yes.
that looked like kind of like Uncharted. But to me, it's like after playing Control and seeing how that game is literally makes you feel the closest to a powerful
Hmm.
Jedi as you can possibly
Oh,
be
yes.
without being a Star Wars game. Just imagine mixing all of that together and make it also a canon now, because everything that
Hmm.
Star Wars does these days is canon. Um, it would probably have someone that powerful if it would be even as close as Jesse Faden in Control would kind of break the lore in a little bit, but just let me dream, because you could have the shooting and then you could also have a lightsaber to have combat that's similar to Jedi Fallen Order. It would switch between both of those.
Yeah.
So yeah, that would be my dream game, like a open world RPG with that kind of character, with like a semi bounty hunter, kind of like in the
Okay.
vein of the Mandalorian, but he's also secretly very force sensitive. Um, yeah, and I already broke it down. That would be my dream game, which I doubt it will ever happen because that
Yeah,
sounds just
I
way too good
believe
to be
it.
true.
That I almost want to like compound on that because the way you were explaining it, it was just like making me all excited about that. That was one of the options that I had picked was an open world space game. But I was like, but less simulation, more arcade,
Hmm.
and fitting that into the Star Wars universe would be perfect. I mean, at this point, it's canon that there's time travel in the storyline, so I think you could just reach for the stars and go for
Hmm.
it, man. And I think you could just piece it together as
Yeah,
you want. But then that made me think, like, what if you pulled like an Assassin's Creed Brotherhood but in Star Wars universe where you are either like Luke Skywalker or maybe like you're your own Jedi and you're making your own new Jedi Order. Yeah.
Jedi
And then like
Academy.
either if you're another character,
Yeah,
maybe it gets wiped out or something, or if you're playing as Luke Skywalker, then it leads up to Kylo Ren's creation and like that whole loss and death of everything. That it just made me kind of curious about that.
hmm
That is not my choice.
yeah. I want to
Oh
hear your
yes,
choice.
very
Hopefully, it's a
different.
little
Don't
different than
worry.
mine.
So I had three main choices. I'm going to give you each in ascending order of my interest in them, and I want you to kind of give me your thoughts. So, first
Go for it.
option, I want to bring back the
Yes.
prototype series. I want so it's I don't know if you remember the
Okay,
Prototype series at all.
I
Oh,
do. There,
stop
it
that
was
right now.
bad, but
Okay.
yeah, keep
I'm
going.
rebuking that. So okay, hear me out here. That's where I'm starting with it, but I'm going to make it like just bring it into now the modern day. You're still like in a large
Hmm.
city. You get access to all these powers and whatnot, but it's more of a you are an operative in their world that has the prototype ability, but is more not instead of like
Hmm.
this rage machine. You're more like an operative. You're an agent that is sent out to take out other infected.
So, so not like Alex
No,
Mercer
it's
and
so
the
a
guy from
different
Two,
character entirely. It's
like
like
no. So,
somebody who's completely in control of his abilities. He has been like trained, brought up in their like government, and is now being sent out to like take people out. Basically, like it's not even really about the infection. We've kind of moved on from that whole outbreak phase. It's like you are now just this unstoppable god that is being sent out to like wipe people out. Like you are the Darth Vader in the hallway on the Rogue One ending scene.
hmm.
Like you're able to clear out people. Of course, like as you get stronger, they're able to almost like adapt against you, like in Metal Gear Solid, where like the more you did certain things, they'll start to make
Uh-huh.
countermeasures for you. So like if you use an ability, like they can
Yes.
see you through thermals, or you use these bullets, well they start using bigger armor. You use your blade too much, they use like electric
Hmm.
armor or something. I don't know. So you get the idea though, where like as you went through the game doing these
Hmm.
abilities, using these abilities, you had to like adapt and keep using different stuff to fight them. And I would also change all of the like the shooting mechanics. I'd change all that so it would be more like almost like the Arkham combat, where you could have like a counter
Hmm.
button. You'd have like a regular attack button, but then you could change it up. So that was my first option. Um, and I feel like you could make a whole thing out of that just by itself.
Yes. Yeah.
Hmm.
So, just to clear up, I feel the first
Okay.
prototype game was bad.
Yes.
The second one was decent.
Same.
I platinumed the second game on PS3. So, I feel the first prototype game was way too messy and unpolished for me to really, really love it. And the second game had like interesting story that got squandered. But I feel like it's a neat idea that
Mhm.
just needs a little bit more refinement. So I kind of get where you're going for, but since I'm kind of just have sour grapes on prototype game, I guess that's a nah. So I want
Yes.
to hear your other options.
Second
Okay.
option is a Superman game done right. Um, yeah.
All right. You get me
So
here.
I
Okay. I
would
want to hear it.
picture it as Superman is doing his thing. You get like Superman at his full power. You're stopping a couple of small crimes, basically. And it's like you're walking in a park and it's easy. My two options for it is either it takes place on Earth and Superman has like basically there's an invasion and he gets freaking knocked out. Like they do something to the sun and it messes with his powers because like maybe like they change it to they teleport the Earth and it's under a red sun now, so he has like less powers,
Mm-hmm.
or like he's slowly draining basically. Or he gets teleported personally somewhere else, maybe like on Darkseid's planet, maybe some other planet entirely. And of
Mm-hmm.
course, like through this process, he's been like extremely weakened. Maybe he has something attached to him that's drained his powers, and then he has to go through the process of the game, slowly getting his abilities back. Because I want everybody to understand, like Superman's not a wimp by himself. We've seen in canon through the Justice League TV show that without his powers, he's still a monster. Like he's
Mm-hmm.
still a big bulked up dude, and he knows martial arts. He knows how to like survive, and that was like entire plots of both comics and TV shows. It's just people kind of forget that nowadays. So he would like be going out here doing his thing, gaining his powers back, like becoming the Superman again, maybe. Or
Mm-hmm.
even maybe he's younger and he's like, this is where he's making his debut as somebody who's like having to fight all out to finally save the Earth. And then the like he would
Mm-hmm.
go through it, fight some amazing enemies. Either Darkseid himself, I feel like, is the best like gravitas villain as opposed to somebody who can really go
Mm-hmm.
at him. And then I would say he finishes it up and you get to now free roam with all your powers back on Earth, like mopping up the last of enemies.
So it
Oh,
will be an
absolutely.
open world also, or like later. Yeah, that's what I started getting a little confused, like because of you getting transported to like Dark Side's
I was kind
apocalypse
of like
world and the
wasn't
new
for
gods.
sure
Like,
on what I
what?
wanted for it either. Like you go to Darkseid's world and you can explore it, or you're on Earth that's been teleported like near apocalypse. And I just like kind of the idea of it. I'm thinking like as you're defending Earth. As throughout the process of this, maybe like as you're growing in your strength, you're also taking care of the earth, and you can like build up its defenses or something.
Now, real quick, Paul, will there be a sequence in this Superman game where the entire city is gonna be fogged out and you have to
You
fly
know
through
what?
some
I
rings?
almost want to make a dream sequence of that where he like Superman starts commenting on how absurd it all is and how terrible what this experience is, and then he'll like snap out of it, just like when you
Uh huh.
play the Wolfenstein New Order, where he when he
Uh
dreams
huh.
he's playing the first level of the old Wolfenstein game. That's what I wanted to do like for a
Mm-hmm.
second, and then he would like snap out of be like that was
Yes.
freaking horrible or something.
Yeah, and so for people that don't understand this reference, it's literally we're talking about the thing that starts off the Superman
Yes.
game from Nintendo 64 that is notoriously known to be one of the worst
Hmm.
games of all time. Of all time. And everyone remembers that having to fight through those rings in a fogged up, ugly metropolis. Oh man. By the way, do you ever play
Not
Superman
Returns the
Returns, the
game,
game?
no, actually.
Oh my god! So that was like
Really?
an open world Superman game that EA made back in 2006.
Yeah.
That wasn't very good, but it really nailed
Mm.
the feeling of flying in an open world Detroit. You could go all the way
Oh,
to the
that's awesome.
sky and look down, but the world was empty. And the thing was that you couldn't get defeated. What you would get defeated is
Huh.
if Metropolis got destroyed. Like the more damage. So that was how they kind of circumvented the
Mm.
fact that Superman was invincible. So, and I feel that will always be inherently the problem with trying to make a Superman game because of his whole invincibility without
Mhm.
kryptonite or the red sun, completely switching off his powers. And that's why I was always almost trying to almost dig deeper into your whole thing with the red sun because you mentioned the martial arts, which I'm trying to think about what story actually mentioned that's more martial arts because he's more about brute strength because of his bulky nature, all that. If you're thinking about making it, will basically play out like a
Mhm.
Batman, like the Arkham games when he's like depowered. So, which to me, it's like um, I guess you're underlining why it's almost impossible for a Superman game to be made because of all these little things that you can like pop at the seal at the seams. But I tell you, nothing would make me happier for someone
Mhm.
to crack the nut and actually nailing it. Especially because if they nail Batman,
Oh,
someone has to
absolutely.
do it.
I
Someone
would
has to
be
do the Superman
100%
game.
ready for
Like,
that. If somebody like walked up to me and said, "Hey, do you think we could make a Superman game?" I would so jump on that. Um, yeah, my
yeah. So,
final
Paul, your
one,
final.
very different from all of this, a Western horror game. Yes.
Okay,
So I have
I
been
want to hear
thinking
this.
about like the idea of how like untapped it is to have some kind of horror in the old west genre, not genre, like setting. There we go. The closest thing as
Uh huh.
far as a video game that exists is the PC game Hunt Showdown. Now, that game is
Mm-hmm.
amazing in its like atmosphere and everything. You're like in the bayou basically. It's late 1800s. You're a cowboy bounty hunter that is sent to fight like hunt a monster somewhere in the zone with 100 other dudes randomly placed all around this circle. You have to find the place somewhere. You have to find like clues to it basically. You have to find it, you have to kill it, and then you have to get out with the bounty to survive. If anybody else like comes along, you have to shoot them, ask questions later basically, because you're all hunting for the same bounty. And if your character dies, they're dead for good and you have to like start over with another character. It's kind of like a roguelike. Yes. So
Like a
permadeath.
permadeath kind of thing.
Basically, it's a battle royale, but set in that. So I'm not a huge fan of that idea. Not a huge fan of some of the mechanics in the game because it's very hard to hit, see, or do many things, and it. just terrifies me to no end, but not in like the good ways, you know? So I'm thinking like maybe a single player game where you are either like a regular cowboy or you're just somebody living in that time period and things are like taking people out and you have to survive it, because like this is the time period where like mine shafts are super common for that kind of time period, and I love how foreboding and creepy they are. Like just imagine
Hmm.
like a mine shaft that is taken over by like some kind of supernatural spirit and just starts changing almost like the interior of the oldest house from Control, and you like have to make your way
Hmm.
out, or you're in some kind of old wood mansion or house or something that has catacombs in it, and all you have is your six shooter and like a double barrel shotgun against some kind of innate horror that you can't even comprehend because all you are is like a cowboy. Just like imagining that kind of close knit setting with like a supernatural creature coming after you just feels like it's so super untapped, and I would be totally down for it.
So, Paul, I think
Tell
that
me
game
more.
exists, and it's
Stop
called
it.
Red Dead
Stop it
Redemption:
right now.
Undead
Get
Nightmare.
out of here. No. I will say it is a good idea for it, but you know, like zombies are kind of overdone in that idea, and it doesn't have like the same kind of mythos of like you. Yes, there are zombies
Mhm.
all over this place, but like after a while, they don't really have that kind of sense of urgency. I'm thinking more like picture. Okay, here's an idea, like The Evil Within, but like in a Western setting with
Mhm.
all this crazy bat crap stuff going
Okay,
on that you
all right.
can't even comprehend.
Okay, because you're now going
Yes,
to more
that's sorry,
psychology
that's
thing.
what I
Okay,
was
I
trying to go
start getting
for,
it.
with
You're
something
more,
that you just can't even comprehend coming after you, and you just have to basically
mhm.
survive with what you got.
Which, by the way, this as you mentioned, the Evil Within, especially that first
Mhm.
game, really nailed that incredibly creepy tone. Like, I feel that's the last time I played a game that
Mhm.
couldn't make me sleep. Like some of like the disturbing imagery of like the
Mhm.
guy in the white robes pursuing you in in the mansion of the ninth level. That yeah, there's just something really incredibly unsettling about that game that I think no other game has matched since. Even its sequel, that I would
Mhm.
argue was a better game, but it just wasn't as memorable as the more flawed first game. So man, yeah, I say like 2 out of 3 in bad. That Western game and the Superman game, I think those are really good ideas. Um, the uh, the prototype one again, uh, not my cup of tea
Well, I
because
could
I'm kind
say
of
you
soured
don't
on
even
that
have to
series.
connect it to the
So,
prototype series then, but you can say like you are like a super soldier
mhm.
that has to go off and do craziness. And you could like just take it
Yeah,
all on your
sure.
own thing.
Yes. Well, I only had the idea for one game, but I feel that my one idea, I feel it is like
Oh yeah.
takes care of so much because a lot. I feel it to me. I think because I was thinking about it, why I love
Mhm.
Jedi Fallen Order so much, because it almost gets
It
close
really
to being almost
does.
my perfect video game. It was like, despite its flaws, it's like uh in the universe I've always loved, and with all these gameplay elements that came together. So, but now just thinking about all these other games that made me reminded me of like, oh, how cool would this be? And I feel the closest I could get to that kind of space exploration is whenever Starfield from Bethesda ever releases. But the thing is that Bethesda has been so hit or miss lately that I don't know that them making the space exploration game with their decrepit technology could
Mhm.
even work, especially if they're using the same technology that they used to build Fallout 4 and Fallout
Yeah.
76. Oh no. Yes, even though it's going to be an next-gen project, if it's still the same technology, no thanks. Like that thing is going to go unrealized, and so it's something that I want to just give a shout out to No
Mhm.
Man's Sky, seeing how like they've managed to add more meat to its procedural generation with how it's evolved recently. How especially how it's done all of this for free. I feel that's getting closer to my idea of like the perfect space exploration, but I feel I need that extra because for me, which is like
Mhm.
the Star Wars universe, because I'm such a huge lore guy. So yeah, I feel, Paul, this was a really fun topic, more fun than, and good thing it's not
Right.
even too long.
We
It
spend
was
more
a
time on
fun
the
brief
news.
thing, and really because it
Yeah.
always goes like that because it's something that's happening here, and I think we can only go as creative as we want
Mm.
for so long. But Paul, I think it's time to like just hit some of the
Yes, it
last few
is.
segments, and I feel it's time to press X for some.
Movies.
Dun, 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 dun. Doo-doo-doo-doo.
Da,
Da-na-na-na.
da, da, da,
Dun,
ba, ba,
dun,
ba,
dun,
ba.
dun.
So
To be fair, we didn't get copyright
that's
strikes,
fair.
so we're gonna keep doing it
Maybe
until
we'll
we get in
abbreviate a little
trouble.
bit,
So,
but Alejandro, our next segment, our next subject. There we go. Who have we heard may be directing Doctor Strange 2?
Mr. Evil Dead himself,
Yes,
Sam
indeed.
Raimi.
Now, when you mentioned this to me earlier, I won't lie and pretend that I knew how significant that was because I knew Doctor Strange is just this mind trippy, actiony series of comics, but I'm told actually that it is more of a horror series. Alejandro, tell me how wrong I am.
Not so it's not quite just a horror series, but he
I
deals
see.
more in the supernatural. So like it's a Doctor Strange, like they have downplayed the supernatural element in the movies to try to make it
Hmm.
fit a little bit more closer to like the what the MCU has dealt with, the way they downplayed the gods in Thor to make
Oh
it seem
yeah,
more
I'm
like
following you.
aliens almost, even though they're technically gods. And so they wanted for whenever they announced Doctor Strange 2, which was like Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, was with the director of the original movie, Scott Derrickson, which that movie director originally did the horror movie Sinister, which is one of the
Hmm.
creepiest things in existence. But he didn't really play into his strengths for the Doctor Strange film, understandably so, because he was trying to make something more akin that could
Hmm.
fit closer to the MCU. um for some reason recently he had like apparently there were some creative differences that the director Scott Derrickson had with Marvel. I'm not sure if with the headmaster himself, Kevin Feige. I wonder if they were hitting it a hard time to it, because they when they announced it, they say we want this to be the first Marvel horror film in quotes. And that I always say that in quotes because I know, being with Disney and all that, they're never gonna go R-rated in the way like something like DC is going recently with like their Joker movie,
Right.
and now the Birds of Prey movie that's coming out this week. Apparently, it's pretty good, but no comment on that because I haven't seen it, and I don't know if I'm going to see it this week. Uh, yeah, there's just something really cool knowing that even though Scott Derrickson parted ways, and even though he's kind of staying in as an executive producer, for whatever that means, apparently they're tapping Sam Raimi, which is so he's so famous for campy horror. Like one of like if you remember Spider-Man 2, like which is actually, yeah, so Sam Raimi, the director of the original Tobey Maguire trilogy, Spider-Man 2 is probably the movie that plays a little bit closer to kind of like his strengths, some of like the campiness, like the raindrops are falling on my hips, the or whatever that sequence, like the with the freeze frames and all of that. He loves that kind of like cheesiness. But then like scenes like when Dr. Octopus is gonna have his surgery, when they're trying to remove the uh
Yeah.
the tentacles, and then the tentacles start going
Yeah.
alive. It's almost like a horror film, like the tentacles grabbing
Tearing dudes
people,
apart.
like him scratching, yeah, tearing this apart, and then like grabbing someone, like scratching the floor
Hmm.
as it's going to the shadow, or like the kind of like the shot of like us seeing the eyes through the monster. He's getting closer to someone for the kill shot and all that. And that scene where he's fighting at the bank and he's climbing up the mountain, and you see that scene on like at the office with some lady that's like hearing the vibrations, and then the tentacles going, and she starts screaming and screaming and runs into the and runs
Uh
into
huh.
the screen screaming. He does that in his horror films, and I feel him doing that, calling that the multiverse of madness. His visual style
Mm.
could create madness in a very campy way that I feel like could still make it a horror film, but not like a true like slasher or something like incredibly creepy. So, and I feel doing something more of a madness thing could kind of fit with them not trying to break the vibe of the universe that
Hmm.
they have created with the MCU. Plus, Sam Raimi, when you watch a Sam Raimi film, it's unequivocally a Sam Raimi film. And one thing that the MCU has struggled with is, with a few exceptions, some of their movies don't feel like a true representation of its own director. The exceptions are like the Guardians of the Galaxy films that are James Gunn all the way through, and they have their own unique identity. And eventually, like the Captain America: The Winter Soldier with the
Yeah.
With the Russo brothers, that they made that more of like a 70s stealth, like spy thriller. um there's a kind of homogeny in the MCU, that, oh, in Thor Ragnarok, that is like the complete
Yeah.
madness of Taika Waititi. So it's very like, the MCU has been generally good, but it's just, I can count almost with one hand the real movies that stand out in its own style, instead of just feeling like it's just part of the machine. Like, that's kind of like one of my problems with like the
Hmm.
Tom Holland Spider-Man films, that they just don't feel like they have their own identity, even though they're really good in the context of like the MCU. But like the Sam Raimi Spider-Man, as cheesy as it is nowadays, like, at least there's just something about them that
Hmm.
identifies them really well. And I my hope is that whenever, if, because they said that he's in talks, so whenever you're sitting your talk, I think that's like 80% certain that he's actually going to be the one on tap. And I feel that'll be a huge get, especially because I feel like Sam Raimi in the Marvel universe needs a little bit of redemption, especially after Spider-Man 3. But to be fair, with Spider-Man 3, that was a movie that kind of got out of his control, because a lot of producers forced him to shoehorn a
Hmm.
lot of stuff that he didn't want to do. Like, for example, Venom was never
Hmm.
supposed to, in the black suit, was never supposed to be in that movie, and they forced him to put him, because he wanted to focus more on kind of like the
Hmm.
Silver Age era of Spider-Man villains. So like Sandman, Octopus, and Green Goblin are considered kind of like that old timey era
Right.
of like the 60s, 70s, that was popular in the Steve Ditko era, Stanley era of Spider-Man. So Venom was relatively later added
Yeah.
after the Secret Wars,
Uh-huh.
original comic from like the 80s. But obviously Venom became very popular because it was like the
Hmm.
mirror image of the villain. But unfortunately, you can tell like the Venom part of that
Yeah,
movie
that
was the
makes
weakest part of
sense.
that movie. And unfortunately, like, and because that was the last movie that he did, because he was gonna do Spider-Man 4, but he was never satisfied with the script, and he had to part ways with Sony at the time, and that's why we got the Andrew Garfield disaster
I
movies,
will say I did enjoy the
which
first
they're
Amazing
not good.
Spider-Man. I will give it that.
I enjoyed it at the time. I tried watching it
Really?
recently, and it doesn't hold up. That movie's bland. That
Nah,
movie's
I
bland
still
as
think the
hell.
opposite.
It's so forget. Yeah, it's just bland. I feel like more reason. I feel. I wonder how much, knowing that those films amounted to much ado about nothing, especially after they got unceremoniously canceled after how bad Amazing Spider-Man 2
Yeah.
ended up being. Even though visually that movie was stunning, but it was everything almost wrong with comic book films at the time. That makes me look with lesser eyes the original Amazing Spider-Man, because I remember really liking it back in 2012, because I wasn't expecting it to liking it, because I was like, this this literally was just made for Sony to keep the Spider-Man license, because the licensing agreement they did back in the day was that if they didn't do
Within
anything
like
with the
10,
Spider-Man
oh,
property
5 years. Okay.
for 5 years, for 5 years, the
Right.
rights would revert back to Marvel. So Spider-Man 3 was 2007, and then Amazing Spider-Man was
Mm,
2012. 5 years.
true.
So they cut it close. They literally slapdash that movie into production to try to keep those rights in. So, but yeah. So, by going back to this, now, because this is called the Multiverse of Madness, I'm putting my tinfoil hat again, Paul.
That
We're
we
talking
are.
about multiverse, parallel reality. Imagine if for some reason they open a tear in the universe, and you see Tobey Maguire
Mm.
Spider-Man again.
I feel like that ship has sailed personally. But the
But
idea,
being Sam Raimi, but just being Sam Raimi is kind of
yeah,
like a cheeky nod. Just ima- because like going back to just to, because I feel like I talk about Crisis on Infinite
you
Earths
do.
almost every time we've done this podcast. Like, so the coolest thing about that crossover was that going to all these different universes
Mhm.
that canonized everything, the Christopher Reeve movies, the
Mhm.
Batman '89 for Michael Keaton movies, and all of that, because it's a multiverse. Crisis of Infinite is the end of the
Right.
multiverse and all these different versions of things. And so this being called the multiverse of madness, this could be like the a cheeky way, if especially if they do Sam Raimi, it would be such a missed opportunity if there's no if there's no like an overt homage to like the Raimi trilogy of Spider-Man, because that
Mhm.
exists in its own thing. So especially like going back, like I don't know if you saw like the meme that I sent you in the uh, Raimi mentioned Doctor
Oh,
Strange and
yeah.
Spider Man too, in a very cheeky way, like, with in that J. Jonah Jameson scene after like Doc Ock pops up in the scene. Uh, so it's almost it's so serendipitous that he put that as because that was as Easter eggs as that was
Yeah.
when Marvel wasn't even big. Who would have thought we would have ever gotten
Right.
even a Doctor Strange film? But uh, just thinking about how how tongue in cheek that the Doctor Strange mention was in Spider Man 2, and seeing that now he's get to the going to direct
Mhm.
Doctor Strange movie if it actually ends up happening. Of course, you
Yeah.
would have want to circle back, and being a multiverse that gives you complete freedom to especially since they're still in a working relationship with Sony in a way, you can make a reference, like even if it's just seeing like a little clip, like I can imagine like Doctor Strange going through like the multiverse, like this whole like nexus that connects all this universe, and in one bubble you see the Raimi Spider-Man. Uh, yeah, it's yeah, I think it's I don't know, yeah, I feel it would be a missed
Yeah.
opportunity if they
Yeah,
don't.
I can really see that, and if nothing else, I would really like just that idea in the MCU, to
Hmm.
bring in the idea of a multiverse, and that would just immediately just give them options to do everything forever. It just like they could bring in
Hmm.
the almost said Jane Austen, the Jane Foster
Okay.
Thor run. They could do the Miles Morales. They could do pretty much anything, and they wouldn't even have to say it's connected to the MCU because they've already introduced in Doctor Strange 2 the idea of a multiverse that can have all sorts of different directions. And
Hmm.
hey, maybe that's like the next big crossover Avengers movie is after making these next seemingly disconnected ideas, the multiverse crashes together and suddenly all of them are in like a new Avengers
Hmm.
movie.
Yes, and that's kind of what happens in the 2015 Secret Wars comic, where like multiple realities kind of merge together to create
Mhm.
like one Earth at the end. Which again, going back to Crisis on Infinite Earths, is kind of what happened. Also, that all this multiverse kind of merged together to kind of create one whole. But I feel even more with the multiverse thing, it is the perfect gateway for
Yes.
them to recast, like to so like if they ever want to
Mhm.
revisit the Iron Man character again, but they don't want to make Robert Downey Jr. be the one to do it. The multiverse allows them the door for them to recast the character and bring him from a different universe, and in that way, it honors the fact that the Robert Downey
Mhm.
Jr. version of the character sacrificed himself and his impact is still there. Then at the same time, allows the character to not completely disappear because there's a multiverse of different things. It's
Mhm.
kind of again going back to Crisis on Infinite Earths, like in that same crossover, like the Brandon Routh Superman is just as legit as the Tyler Hoechlin Superman, which is as legit as the
Mhm.
Tom Welling Smallville Superman. All three of those exist in different Earths, and they're all the same character, but they're played by different people, and it doesn't make logistical sense in a way why they would look different, but it's a way for
Yeah.
you to have different versions of characters with the same name,
Mhm.
and you just kind of go with it. So. Uh, Spider-Man Far From Home toyed closer to the multiverse reality after before they pulled the rug under everyone and then went with the
Yeah.
predictable thing with Mysterio of him being a master artist, which is that's the comics for him. I kind of almost wanted them
And
to
where he's
like
like
go
an
extra
actual
step to
sorcerer
establish
supreme or
to
something like
establish
that.
exactly, especially because the multiverse introduced in Doctor Strange 1 was just uh was just
Mhm.
implied that it's a multiverse of things, but it's not as overt as now calling it the multiverse of madness. So I'm really curious now, more Raimi directing this movie is literally makes this my most
If he
anticipated MCU
directs it.
movie now. Like if he directs exactly like once because I feel the way it's been reported with like exclusive and all that and the actual this
Hmm.
is not a we got discovered uh news because they're like literally when you see a we got discovered news pop up, which they always seem to pop up on Facebook for some reason, uh, they are really not a legit news sites. They like to throw a lot
Hmm.
of things into the wall to see which sticks, so that whenever something they try to guess as many things as seem plausible enough, so that whenever they become official, they're like, "Oh, we call this one," even though they don't. They're not like legit. When you see people at the journalists at Hollywood Reporter or Deadline reporting on this, that's when you know it's very legit. And I really hope it becomes because the MCU right now is going to enter its most
Oh yeah,
experimental phase yet after Endgame, and they kind of need that because I kind of feel done with the MCU after Endgame. I don't really feel excited for the
not at
Black
all.
Widow movie. The
I'm more
Eternals, maybe
interested
so.
in
The Black
WandaVision
Widow
and
movie,
the Falcon and
yeah, I'm
yeah,
interested in the shows. I'm very interested in the Disney Plus shows, but more just for me to get value out of the Disney
true.
Plus subscription. But I just want to see how it translates to TV. And the WandaVision show is supposedly gonna connect
It did
directly to
look
the Doctor
very
Strange
trippy,
movie.
so I'm curious.
So mhm. Exactly. So especially
Hmm.
after the Super Bowl trailer,
Yeah, we don't need to
we
talk
don't need to go over that. Like it is like a bunch of trailers in the Super Bowl for everyone that watched the Super Bowl. I did, and I was platinum in the Players of Pressure games. Congrats to
Yeah,
the
turn up.
Chiefs though for winning. Uh, yeah, it's yeah. I just feel this one has a lot of potential if Raimi is in. But even then, like then, the most exciting things is the TV shows they were doing. So yeah, I feel in this kind of madness of a news day that it's been today, Paul, I feel this is
I
as
would
good a time for
agree,
us to
but
end
I
this.
have one last thing that I actually wanted to mention. Speaking of the Chiefs winning the Super Bowl, it is canon, at least to the Snyderverse, for Henry Cavill that Clark Kent, aka Superman, is a Kansas City Chiefs fan because he is from Kansas. And
Yeah.
the last thing I want to
Uh,
mention, I did some research while we were talking for Superman's martial arts. He has two canon ways that he does martial arts. One is that he was trained by Batman, partially to do some like kind of
mm-hmm.
moves and whatnot. And the second is that he knows two forms of Kryptonian martial arts called called Torachasm Rao and Torachasm Vo, and that's like physical and
All
mental
right.
martial arts that he learned through that. Therefore, he does have the ability to use martial arts. So yeah.
Okay. Uh, okay, Paul, you sold me. So that's the thing. I
And
just
I
needed
figured
to have
on
that
the
confirmation.
show we
Okay,
had to
and it's
just
good that
wrap it up with that proof.
yes, exactly. Before people are like, "You're just a BSer." No, you're not. And we like to at least have some tangible proof as much as possible, so we don't go into the confusion that we have with the Fallout thing in the first episode by our one
Hmm.
and only commenter so far. So, but yeah, Paul. Yeah, I feel yeah this episode was a doozy, but we managed to keep it
That we
below the
did.
2 hours. So yes, but meaty stuff. And I bet it's just gonna get way crazier when all these companies start
Oh
talking and more
yes.
news and more movies start showing up. So, Paul, so as we close this up,
They
so
can
where can
find
people find
me
you?
on mainly Twitch lately. I've been streaming a lot more at Angel Sword 21. Come on by. I've been doing group
Mhm,
streams with either Rainbow Six Siege or The Forest lately, but I've been going to be branching out, I guarantee, at some
mhm.
point soon as we start playing other things. Excuse me, outside of that, you can find me probably the best by the StatX Media main Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram accounts. How about you,
Yes,
Alejandro?
and you can always find me at a_Dro Segovia on Twitter. I like retweeting a lot of stuff, not tweeting much of my stuff. So you'll see that my Twitter is a complete smorgasbord of different things. And you can also follow me on Instagram at Alejandro.segovia93, which, by the way, I see that I've gotten a few new followings of people that I don't know. So I assume it's people that have listened to the show. So in all those. In all that case,
Yeah.
I just want to say thank you for listening to me and Paul's ramblings because It really is one of the most fun things that we can get to do in a week, full of a lot of middling to just
Very
regular
true.
life stuff.
Thank you, everybody,
So
for sure. And also, Alejandro, I want to point out that our first episode of the X Button has 40 views now, which is the most views of anything on the Statics Media channel. And I was very happy about that,
yes,
actually.
so far. Yeah, I've recently because back in the day, the Statics radio show also had a few high ups, but again, that show didn't have an identity of its own
Hmm.
for it to have a following. This is a strictly we have stuck to what we said it was going to be, and I'm really proud of what we're doing, Paul. And can't wait to see it grow, especially
Yes,
because
we
we're
are.
5 episodes in. We managed to do it. We did five without taking breaks or anything. We've managed to do it. So we're gonna keep going
Crushing
until
it
we reach the good 10. So and hopefully, because I keep repeating this over and over
every
again,
week.
I promise this is just not gonna be. This is not just going to be empty promises. We're still figuring out how to get all these
Yes.
episodes in your podcast
Spotify,
services of your choice.
SoundCloud, all that.
And I already talked again with my guy with the other guys, and I told them that it's high time that we gotta get on the ball because we don't want to get too have way too many because it's gonna become a little too daunting if we don't get all of these episodes up
Hmm.
before they start piling up. So yeah, hopefully, episode 6 would be
We're
one that you
claiming
see
it
in
in
podcast
faith.
services. We're claiming it. Yeah, we're claiming it in faith. So. Paul, it was a pleasure always speaking with you. Let's see what happens in the next week. And
Press X to
remember,
play.
press X
Night,
to
everyone.
play. Good night
Yeah,
or
one of
good
those.
morning, whenever you're listening.
Adios.
Bye bye. Hasta la vista, baby.